right. And so can you see?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. All right. So, Carrie, you want to say anything before we start? Or you want me just to?
Yes, of course. I would like to actually introduce you. So this is Ryan McGowan from RPM High Performance Coaching. Ryan is incredibly passionate about professional development and has started his business to coach college students to be their best selves. So Ryan, I'm so excited to learn more about jobs and internships and how to procure them. It's going to be great.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today and doing this.
Okay, thank you for having me, and thank you for joining us today. So, as Carrie said, my name is Ryan, and this is part two of a series on how to maximize your experience in college. Last week, we talked about managing that transition and what it's like um, coming out of high school, going into college, and what you should know before you step foot on campus to make sure that you are um, doing everything you can to maximize what you can do at the college. So today we're going to take it another step further, and we're going to look at some ways to get creative about finding jobs and internships because they really are important during your time in school. And it's really good if you know now what you should be looking for and what you can be doing, because it's always much easier when you're prepared than when you're trying to scramble because you need maybe an internship for a class or to graduate. So the earlier you can get started, the better. So, with that being said, before we start, if you are new to this, I did this last week too, but just want to say congratulations because I know you just graduated high school. It's exciting. I also feel bad and empathize with sort of the adjustments and maybe the truncated senior experience that you may have had based on the last couple months. But with that being said, I appreciate you being here with us tonight because I know it's a nice summer day. There's a lot of other things we could be doing. It's nice to see people caring about the next step of their lives. So thank you. About the fall semester, I have done this series with the optimistic belief that everybody will be back on a campus in the fall. So with that being said, if you get communication from your school that you're switching to a different type of hybrid or it's going to be online only, feel free to reach out to me. Carrie has my information. I will share it with you at the end of the presentation as well. And we can work out a personal system. So you can send me like the communication you're receiving from your school. I can kind of help you decipher that as someone who just went through it and help you come up with a game plan for how you can adjust. So a little bit about me. I am from Pittsburgh. I'm from the area here. I graduated from South Fayette in 2015. I went there K to 12. And then after high school, I went to John Carroll University where I studied finance and computer science. I just graduated last May in 2019. And since then, I have been working at Covestro as a commercial rotational, they call them trainees or like in our development program. And there I've been going through for the last year, 4 different job functions. I still have 2 more ahead of me starting next week and then one after that as well, up until January of next year. And also, since this is a job and internship based program, I should also get some credentials there. So throughout college, I had 2 different on-campus jobs. I worked in IT and I worked as a tour guide for 3 years, and we'll hear more about that later. And I also had 4 different internships at 3 different companies before I graduated. That's really what kind of inspired me to make this seminar too, is realizing how what I did to find those internships really had nothing to do with anything special that I did. It was just looking early, looking in different places and following different interests. So I'm going to talk about what that looked like for me, what those internships were like, and maybe give you some ideas of what you can do for yourself. And when I'm not doing my regular job, when I'm not doing this professional development help, I'm an avid golfer. I love to run. I love to read. And so with that being said, I want to get into, let's go over what we're going to talk about today. So I looked at this as some questions that I think I had when I was going into college, and I'm sure you're probably looking at too, is first one being, should I work at all during school? Like, aren't I going to be really busy? Is there enough time for this? Where should I be looking for jobs? Is an internship better than a job? How are they different? Does it really matter if I get one or the other? What should I know about internships versus jobs before I go into one? And very timely now, like, what about this pandemic? Like, how are things changing? What should I know, today on June 17th that could affect me in September, October, and next year. So I want to define the two terms you're going to be hearing a lot, because from some people they are used rather interchangeably. They're really not, at least from the way this is set up. I am using a job would be something that's in any field or type of work, versus an internship, which would specifically be in your field of interest, something that you want to be studying, ideally something you want to be working in after you graduate, or maybe go study further in a graduate program. Job, in my opinion, is much easier to find, mainly because it's a much larger field to be working from. And then obviously an internship would be more selective because you're only looking at that field. Those, the smaller number of companies, taking a smaller number of people, a little bit harder to get your foot in the door there. Jobs are paid, or else it's just volunteering, which is also important, but not for the point of the conversation we're having tonight. Meanwhile, an internship could be paid or unpaid. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more later, but just be aware that sometimes for the great honor of being an intern, some companies don't pay you, but you can maybe work that into college credit, which is still useful too. And that goes to my next point. Jobs really don't count for college credit. They're just other things you can be working on. Meanwhile, sometimes your school will allow you to use an internship as college credit. And that's something you can take up with your registrar at your school. And that's also something, if you have more questions about, you can talk to me. I had some experience doing that, helping some friends with that as well. So we can go over your specific situation after this. So should I work in college? That first question. I think the answer unequivocally is yes. There's so many benefits to it. You'll see, and also you're going to have time for it. I know coming right out of high school, it can seem like, I don't know how I can handle anything more. Like I was so busy already. When you do make the transition to school or to college rather, you'll find that there is a lot more time than you anticipated having. That's a good thing. You can be filling up with job or some other kind of work. But the benefits also extend way beyond just a job. Like you can get a lot of benefits from any kind of experience outside of class, outside of extracurriculars. So you really should be pushing yourself to find other ways to fill your time and to develop yourself further. And on top of those benefits like time management, you can learn new skills, you can learn conflict resolution, customer service. I mean, there's really a lot of things you can pick up from your day-to-day activities at a job or internship. And most importantly, with the question, should you work in college, you can always stop. It's employment at will. I mean, so if you get to a point where you try a job on campus, try a job in the community, try an internship, and it's just not feasible, it's just too much for your school schedule, it's too much for your any other reason you could think of, you can stop. So that's why I'd say early on, you're better off looking to plan to do some kind of work, whether it's a job or internship, because you can always stop it, but you can never catch up all that lost time. So you might as well start with the assumption that you're going to work, you're going to get an internship while in school. So let's take a closer look at what that might mean and how you're not alone with this. This was from the last couple of years. It was from the NCES, which is the National Council of Education. It's the College Education Society. There it is. And you see full-time students, so taking more than 3 classes, essentially, about 2 out of 5, 3 out of 6, half of them roughly are working. And what surprised me here was the amount of hours they're working. It's actually more than I would recommend a full-time student working. You see the graph, most of them working that 20 to 34 hour per week. I think you can really get a lot of the benefits from work, a lot of the experience, and some of the other benefits we'll talk about later with like 10 to 20 hours, if that fits into your schedule a little bit more comfortably. But as you can see, you wouldn't be alone if you took a job during the semester. And then on the other side there, the part-time students, you'll see majority of them are working a lot, oftentimes to pay for school. But I was in that camp a couple of years ago when I became a part-time student, just because I didn't have a lot of class left till graduation. So I went part-time so I could take an internship during the semester too. So there's a lot of flexibility that way, and it's pretty easy to balance all that together once you just make a plan and decide that you want to work. And regarding the internship in specifics here, we'll see from Bloomberg that about 3/4 of students graduate with at least one internship experience officially. And that could be paid or unpaid. About 55, 56% of those internships were paid. So a little bit over half are. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking around. If you get an offer for an unpaid, you can probably find one also for a paid position, well, if you really want one. And this is important to keep in mind too, because you don't want to be setting yourself apart in a negative way at any point during your time in college, or when you're looking for a job after, or if you're applying for a graduate school program. If you see a majority of the students, and if 3 out of 4 of the people applying next to you have done internships, you don't want to be the one who hasn't yet, because right or wrong, it's going to adversely impact your stance with that interview process. So you want to make sure that you're staying competitive, and it's more than just because your resume looks bigger. It shows you one, are hireable, that other people have used you and it went well. It also shows that you are willing to take risk as a new position. It shows that you can learn and be trained quickly, which is a really valuable skill, because as you'll learn throughout college and once you're done, they don't show you remotely close to everything you need for your job in school, but they show you how to learn, and they can help you teach you how to learn. And if you do internships like that, you're proving to potential employers that you know how to learn and you know how to be trained. And that's a good skill. That's a good thing to be able to demonstrate to people who don't know you other than what you've written down on a piece of paper. And also, it's fair, if we're going to talk about working in school, there are costs to it. You are just obviously going to have less time for studying, for other extracurriculars, hanging out with friends, by nature of dedicating certain amounts of your schedule to work that other people might not be doing. There could be added stress, whether that's trying to fit it into your schedule, trying to maybe figure out a commute. If you don't have a car, you need public transportation, or you need to rely on a friend for a ride, or just trying to fit in studying, like maybe if you're working late. So there's going to be some added stress. And there might even be potential financial aid limits. We can also talk about this based on your individual circumstances, but certain jobs, especially on-campus jobs, might provide work study funds, and that may affect your FAFSA and like your financial aid that you can get based on accepting those jobs. There's a really good resource if you want to write it down. It's called FAFSA Forecast. That's FAFSA, the number 4 cast, CAST, and it's put on by the government, and it's a way to simulate if you like accepted a position that had work study, and how that would affect the financial aid that you can receive from the government and in your loans. So you can kind of play out those different scenarios. If you're presented something you think might have an impact, you can check it out online before, in case it ends up changing things too much for you to be comfortable with. But obviously there are a lot of benefits to working as well. The first one, especially if it's something like a work study or an internship that gives you college credit that can actually save you from paying for those classes later. It can help offset the cost of college directly, which is always important. The average semester is about $25,000 now. So anything you can make, anything you can do to help reduce that cost is really helpful. Also, goes without saying, you're going to develop new skills. And any position outside of your day-to-day classes or your clubs will help you develop new skills. It doesn't matter if it's as a server at a restaurant, a babysitter, if you are an intern at a software company. Each of those positions can still be valuable and teach you new things that make you marketable, make you hireable to people down the road, and just help round out your skills. You also can build experience for later. So if you pursue an internship in a field that you're interested in, you're able to get pretty low stakes experience, because not a lot bad can happen to you as an intern. Like if you're trying your best, you make mistakes, talk to your manager about it, you learn, you can move on. You're really not going to get fired or reprimanded in some horrible way. And then when you're in the workforce later, you can draw on those experiences and avoid any of those missteps or mistakes that you may have made without the internship. Regularly, even in my job now, I think back to internships that I had 2 companies ago and I'm still using things that I learned that are helping me do my job now. So you can always build on that experience, and you'll never really forget it. And especially when you are new to a company, learning almost what not to do at other companies can help you immensely in your first couple weeks, couple months, as you make a good first impression on a lot of the people you're going to be working with. And then lastly, I put extra cash separately from helping offset the cost of college, because while you might do a work study or get college credit for a job that would really drop down the cost. If you just pick up a job as a server, you're not really going to be putting a dent in the cost of college over 10 to 12 hours a week. But what it could do is provide some freedom for you to be able to go to a restaurant with some friends, explore a museum or an art gallery around the community, donate to causes that are important to you on campus. Like, it just provides a little bit more peace of mind. So even if you don't think it's going to make a dent in the student loans you might be facing, it still is always better to have a little bit extra of resources when you're living on campus or living in the community to be able to do what fun things you should be able to do at 19, 20, 21 years old. So when you're looking at a job or an internship, and hopefully you're convinced so far that you should at some point during your time in college, there are a couple of factors you should consider. Just like the real estate agents always say, it's location, 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 especially when you're an underclassman, because some schools have limits on if you can have a car on campus, especially if you're living on campus. Some places restrict where you can park. So make sure you pick a job or an internship in a location that doesn't cause undue stress, like trying to figure out how to get to the job. So for that, like, it's really good if you get an on-campus job, because then you can just walk or bike to it pretty easily. Or don't try to pick one that's not like in the middle of a downtown area if you're trying to do it around classes, because then you have rush hour and a lot of parking. So just be smart about where that location is. Really try to think through what your day would be like with that job or with that internship, and if it's in a location that makes sense for you. Your schedule. This changes throughout the semester as different activities end, as you add or drop classes. This changes semester to semester. And it's really important to recognize that it's probably the most important thing you work around in college. So at any point, if a schedule changes and a manager isn't being accommodating of it, if they're not adjusting for you or they're not willing to adjust for you, you have to walk away from it, because ultimately you're there to be a student, you're there to learn, and the job or internship is a good experience to help augment that learning or supplement the learning you're getting in a classroom, but it's not the only one. So if at any point your schedule becomes to a point where you're weighing like going to work instead of going to class, you should reevaluate and don't be afraid to make that decision for yourself, because your schedule is really important, and your work should fit into your class schedule, not the other way around. Pay. If you're working a job, weigh your pay options versus how far away they are. Try to figure out what is the best combination for you to make sure you're getting the most out of your time. If it's an internship, decide if you only want to pursue paid ones, if you are okay with an unpaid one, as long as you can get college credit. Like, just start really making a map in your head for what scenarios you might be facing and how you're going to navigate them. Because knowing before you apply to a position that if you get it, you need to immediately go talk to the registrar if it will count for class credit or something like that, helps you a lot in the moment, because those decisions have to be done very quickly. And if you wait too long, or if you are too unsure of what to do, you might miss a lot of the opportunities that could be presented to yourself, or you might be not able to get the most out of that experience if you don't have the plan. So think about these factors. Same with the career relevance. This is the same thing for job or internship, really, but I think this goes a lot with the internship. It's the idea that is the work you're going to be doing related at all to where you think you want to go after you graduate. And even if you're unsure about it, still take that job, because 2 months, 3 months over the summer, maybe during a semester, to realize you really don't like something is so worth it versus finishing that degree in that program and then being stuck with it. So if it's at all related to something that you think you want to do, take it, try to pursue it, try to get involved with it early, because you can always change your plan later. And then related experience. This is an important thing to consider for jobs and internships. Are there anything you are good at right now, or you think you can learn quickly right now, that people would pay you for? Because that changes where you want to go for work, for your job, for your internship. Like if you have no practice in, we'll go with like software engineering, any kind of programming, you might want to work on your experiences there in clubs or in classes in school first before you apply, because a lot of places won't give you a chance. Meanwhile, if you're really good at like graphic design, you can probably find any kind of work like that, either through freelancing or other like marketing companies in the area. And that's really valuable related experience. So just that takes some introspection and just reflection on yourself and thinking about what you do well right now and what you're comfortable with, because then you can always find sort of that base and then think about where you can go to push that or to deepen that expertise or that experience in that area. So let's talk about where you can find a job. Um, Creativity really is key for this, because I think oftentimes going into college, you only really think of like the classic college jobs, like, maybe like working in a restaurant, working in a coffee shop, that kind of thing. Um, I want to point out that there are really a lot of opportunities on campus. When you think about how many people are on a college campus, they're small towns in a lot of regards. So it's really easy and really convenient to find a paying job on campus that takes care of some of those other factors like location and schedule. It makes it a lot more straightforward to deal with. So look for those early and ask about them often, because maybe someone quit because their schedule changed. So even if a couple of positions you want filled up, don't be afraid to keep in contact with the hiring manager of that company and just say, hey, like, how's everything going? You guys ever need any extra help? Maybe seasonality kicks in, they need more people in the fall or in the spring, whatever, and you'll be on the top of their mind. So just look around you and don't be afraid to ask for what you want when it's a job. So if you're looking off campus, some of the classic ones are like coffee shops, restaurants, babysitting, depending on where your college campus is. My school was in a very suburban area, and I had friends who made a lot of money babysitting just after class, and they loved they loved it. Fitness studios is a good one to keep in mind too. If you have any interest in CrossFit or yoga or cycling, oftentimes you can take a non-teaching position and just like work the desk and check people in and clean, that kind of thing, and you'll get paid. And oftentimes you also get free classes out of it. So I know I had a lot of friends who did that at some studios around John Carroll as well. It's an extra little benefit that really comes in handy for college students. So keep that in mind too if you have any interest in any of that. And then gig work. That's like, think of now as like in the news a lot with Instacart, like grocery delivery, or anything on like Fiverr or Upwork or gigworker.com. And this is great because if you like writing, you can find copywriting or blog writing for people. If you are really good at design, like I said, you can design logos like people did for me when I bought my logo for this company. You can do proofreading. You can do translation if you know another language. Like, there's so much work out there that people do for those kind of freelance jobs, those gig works. And it's nice because it's really convenient for you to be able to do in your room in your residence hall. As long as you have a computer and an internet connection, you can get a lot of this work done, and you don't even have to worry about the location of the job, the schedule of the job. It can fit your terms better. But I really wanted to talk about the on-campus job opportunities, and this is where I think there's a lot of unknowns for students, or maybe a lot of like hidden gems is, I think, a better way to put it. Things that I didn't even realize maybe until my sophomore, junior year of college. And by then it was too late because people already locked up these really solid jobs already. Library, someone always has to stock the books, help students check out the books, put the paper in the printers, all that kind of stuff. They oftentimes, your college will just pay students to do it. It's already a quiet place. You can do your homework at the desk. I had a couple of friends who worked at libraries from beginning of their freshman year till they graduated, because it was just such a fantastic job. There's normally like a coffee shop or something. So if you are coming in or off shift, you can pick something up, you can sit at your desk, do your work, occasionally help some people out, but it's a really good spot to look. So think about that, please. Any of the dining areas, whether it's the actual dining hall or if it's like a cafe or something on campus, a lot of them are student run or use student workers, and especially in the evenings. So it's another place where you can work. You can still do homework while you work. Notice that's a big theme for a lot of my on-campus job ideas, are places where you get paid to sit and do your homework and also do a little bit of actual work on the side too. So like, these places are fantastic to keep in mind for that. The mailroom, there's a ton of packages, especially in the beginning of the semester when all your textbooks are coming in. They use student workers all the time there to help sort out the packages, email the students, do interdepartment deliveries. And it's another place where you can get some of your work done too while on the clock. You can be an administrative assistant for any of the offices. I know, for example, at John Carroll, our like dean of students, our student union programming board, our office of student affairs, and like our student engagement, they all had students who worked the desk and just helped take calls and direct things for the other full-time faculty. So that's something you can do as well. The bookstore goes without saying, there's always going to be people who have to staff that work at most colleges use students. You can get a discount there too if you are an employee, which is nice. The IT department, you can do what I did for my first year in college. And you can work anything from recording lectures, troubleshooting projectors and equipment in the classroom, or managing rentals of things, or managing the printers and like routers and things like that on campus. You can be a tutor. Most departments specialize in offering tutoring for their students. They often pay the upperclassmen to do that, and that's probably the only problem with that position is it's not really open for you as a first-year student, but just keep it in mind as you progress. If you make any relationships with a department chair or with a professor, if you ask and they like you, they probably will let you have that job as long as you've proven that you know what's going on in the classes and that you're a responsible person. Tour guide, my personal favorite. It's what I did for 3 years. If you have any interest in talking to people, if you like sales or just really love the school you're at, a lot of schools bring on tour guides. Some pay, some don't. So that's unique to maybe the individual school that you are at, but it's another good place where you can help out your school a lot, show some school pride, get some homework done, and make some really good connections with people. The fitness center, there's always people swiping in your student ID, cleaning, making sure everything's safe. They always need people to work it there. Every time I went into the gym in school, I always saw the person at the desk reading or taking notes or doing some of their homework. So another place where you can always do that. And then the Career Services Center. This is, again, another place that probably wouldn't apply for you as a first-year student, but definitely as a second year, you could get into here. And this works out really well because, one, you will get paid for it if your school has this kind of center. And it also gives you a lot of good hands-on training because oftentimes the Career Center work, you would be organizing maybe job postings, maybe organizing a career fair for the students so you get some interaction with the recruiters. You also get some practice reviewing people's resumes and their interviews. And to do that, you get trained on what to identify. So it's like a double bonus there for you. You get the initial training on what to do, and you get a ton of practice helping other people see what they've done incorrectly. So you benefit a lot from that experience. I had a couple of friends who worked in the Career Center, and other than being a tour guide, I think it was the best job that people had on campus. All right. So the next question then is, if those are just jobs, then is an internship any better than a job? And it depends. Probably not the answer maybe you were hoping for, but it really depends on your individual scenario and what your goals are for that semester, for that year, for the summer, whatever it might be. And just like everything else, that right answer changes. So it's really important just to keep thinking about what are you really looking for this semester. So for example, like I said before, I was a tour guide for 3 years. I started out in IT for 1 year because of a professor who got to know me, and he offered me this job recording lectures and then editing the footage together and then giving it back to the department chairs. And I liked it because I got to go to a bunch of guest speakers and like hear what they had to say. And it was things I was going to go to anyway. And then I got paid to record it and do a little extra work. And then after that, I got my job as a tour guide, and I loved that job. And then it got to my junior year, and I realized that I was going to go part-time because I was studying abroad. I didn't want to graduate early, so I had to stretch it out a little bit. So I went part-time, and I kept my tour guide job. And then all of a sudden, this opportunity opened up where I had spare time in my semester. So what was best for me changed. It used to be just do all your classes, take your 15, 16, 18 credits, and then be a tour guide for 15 hours a week. Now all of a sudden it changed to, well, how can I get some career-related experience, some professional experience here? So I started looking for an internship, and that's when I was able to find one during the semester. So I worked about 24 hours a week in a professional internship. I worked still another 8 to 10 hours a week as a tour guide, and I still took classes. And that only lasted for one semester, thankfully, because it was a lot. But it was a really good fit for me at that one time because my goals changed. I realized I could afford to get some extra experience in. And so with that being said too, experience is always better than no experience. So if you find yourself questioning, if you think you want to do an internship, if you want to work at all, you're always better off trying to get that experience and dealing with it afterwards. Because even if you have a really tough semester, maybe you get a job, do what I did, and you had 24 hours at an internship, worked on campus still because you didn't want to give up that, and you still had your classes. If things don't go quite according to plan and your GPA slips a little bit because of that, the experience is going to outweigh it. Like they say, for business, for example, as long as your GPA is over like a 3.5, you're going to be hireable pretty easily. That's not going to really put a dent on you. And what's going to make a difference is what you do with all of that professional experience. So if you have a slightly lower GPA, but you had an extra internship because you stuck it out for a semester and tried to make it happen, that's going to look a lot more favorably on you than it would on somebody else. So just remember that, like, don't be afraid to push yourself a little bit. That's what this time is for, because if you make a mistake, it's not really going to hurt you that badly. So just get comfortable with the idea that you might make some decisions that seem a little difficult or stressful, but that experience you gain from it is going to make you so much better off. So back to the internship then, what should you know about them going into it? What makes them sort of the holy grail of your time in college? Why are they what you should be looking for? So first of all, again, the common theme, you have to look early and you have to look often. I can't stress that enough until you start doing it yourself, and then you see friends maybe who waited way too long and how hard it is for them to find it. For example, when I got my internship with Covestro for the summer going into my senior year, I applied in October of my junior year, almost a full calendar year before my internship. And I got a phone interview almost immediately. And then because of just being in Cleveland for college and them wanting to do a face-to-face interview, I didn't do my face-to-face interview in Pittsburgh until the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but I got my offer letter the Monday after Thanksgiving. So it was still November, and I had already locked up what I was doing for the summer. And that allowed me to just really focus on my classes, try to get the most out of them, enjoy my time on campus, and I was done. And it really got me thinking about how this process works. And our recruiter actually told me it when he was like giving me an update on the program. He said it's really just such a positive feedback cycle, because the most driven, ambitious, and hireable people are often the ones who want to get started, and they're looking early, like sometimes even in September for internships. They just want to get this done, taken care of, and they know they'd rather have their pick of everything. So then that causes the companies to start posting their positions earlier and earlier, because they're like, okay, if we always get these qualified people in October, let's see what happens if we move it back. Let's see like what we can do. And so it just keeps driving itself, where the best positions are often found much earlier than you ever expected. Like some schools don't even do career fairs or even, give like reminders to their students to apply until November, December, even the spring semester. And with the rate of how things have been changing, that's too late. So you really should be looking as early as you can, because you'd be surprised at what's out there just waiting for people to apply, even in September, October of a school year. And then apply no matter what. I think I had to help a lot of friends with this as we were like going into our junior and senior years, because job postings and internship postings are going to drive you crazy with how much they put on there with preferred or required. It's like all these different skills, all these different even years of experience as a college student, and it kind of can be discouraging. I promise you, no applicant checks all of those boxes. It's just a wish list. So as long as you don't have to lie about anything on your resume or on that job posting, apply. For example, my first year in college, I applied for an internship that required a junior. I ended up getting it, even though I was only a first year student, because they liked what was on my resume already. I had some good experience from clubs. I had a good experience with a club in high school that had some pretty good skills that I could put on the resume. And they liked my interview, and they took me, and I interned for that company for 2 years in a row. And it's because I didn't listen to their stupid requirement. So apply no matter what. As long as you're being honest with yourself and what's on that resume, submit it. The worst that can happen is you get a thanks for your interest, but we've moved with another candidate. So always apply, because you might luck out and you might end up getting it, and you never know where that's going to take you. Also, not all internships are equal. So there's a lot of good sources out there. The one I used the most was a website called Glassdoor. If you haven't heard of it yet, it will become a pretty good friend of yours throughout college. You can sign up for a free account with them, and you can read reviews from employees about their experiences at the company. So you can actually look up what other interns reviewed that company's internship experience as. So you can get an idea of, is this actually like an internship where they're going to show me things and challenge me, or is this more like an internship where I just go get coffee for people and make copies? So you can really get all that information from a couple of websites that are out there. My favorite, like I said, is Glassdoor. So don't be afraid. Even if you get an offer from somebody, by the way, don't be afraid to reject it. If what you've seen online is saying it's not going to be the best for you, you'll be able to find something better. And then also, this was a nice little mantra. I forget where I heard this. I got this while I was in school. I forget if it was like a professional development seminar or something like that. Um, but it's the idea of using what you learn and learning what to use. So you will be able to apply a lot of the skills that come from your classes. And it may not be the direct subject matter of the class. It could be anything from internet research for a class, paper writing, and organization from a class. Could be the actual skill set of the class. There's a lot going on in colleges. You may not even be conscious of yourself learning, but just from being in that environment, you're picking up new skills. And don't be afraid to bring that with you to an internship experience, because I think there's sometimes this like divide that exists between like the college world and like the professional world. But really, I mean, when you are in an entry level position, so much of what you do can be done in your own way. So you have the freedom a lot of times to ask questions and want to change and innovate some things a little bit. And people really like to see that. So don't be afraid to use what you learn. And then more importantly, you should be learning what you have to use. So internships are really great experiences. And I loved all four of mine, because even if, the individual work I may have been doing in one didn't fit my dream career or anything like that, it was a good chance to apply skills that I had seen or that I've learned in college, but then also through just every day being in that environment, seeing what people that I really admired around me, what were they doing and what did they know how to do? So I could see how to better myself and how to improve myself, because the whole point of an internship really is to learn. I think sometimes people just think of it as learning, like that job or like that career, like what it's like. But for me, I always viewed my internships as an experience of learning what to do and what not to do in the workplace, recognizing that every company is different. All the roles are different, even they have very similar titles. The way a lot of companies handle things are really different. So one experience at company A will not really apply to the same like nominal position at company B. There's always different hierarchies and different structures. What's more important is that you know how to adapt. And that is what an internship can teach you how to do, especially if you're able to get multiple through different companies, because you'll see there's so many similarities, but a lot of the minutia and a lot of the specifics of your job and navigating the culture of the workplace are vastly different. And that's what you can learn through your internships. So that's the mindset that I think you should be having when you go into one. Don't be afraid to use things that maybe a supervisor didn't tell you to do, but you did in a class and like it worked and you understand it. Use it. They're going to love it. But also don't be afraid to learn what you aren't doing well and how you can change it. The best way to do that too is by seeking feedback. The whole point of the internship, like I said, is not just to get hired. Like oftentimes like people want the internship at a company because they want to get that offer letter from them so they know where they're going to be working. That's a good goal too. But honestly, your most important goal and the most authentic goal, I think that makes people want to help you, is if you show earnestly that you just want feedback and you want to be able to improve. And that's oftentimes where you also get that offer letter, because they like your attitude and they want you to stick around. You don't want to be so self-serving and only be there so you get a job offer. These people can detect that and it doesn't come off well. So be there earnestly to seek feedback and get better, and really just get the idea of learning and using everything you can. And that's how you get the most out of your internship. That's how you get the best, get best reviews, get the best opinions of yourself among the people who make decisions at that company. That's how you get the most out of the experience. So when you leave, you're a different worker, you're a different expert in that, whatever that specific role may be. So that's my take on the internship. That's what I think is the most important for you to know. And so I'll spend a few minutes here talking about what has changed right now, because obviously, as we've seen some dismal employment numbers, and a lot of companies have canceled internship programs for this summer throughout the fall. So let's just talk about some things that are overall going on in the workforce. So a lot of times, companies right now are having some hiring freezes. As a result, that is impacting some employment offers for people graduating in over the last couple months here, or also just rescinding offers outright, which is terrible. So just keep that in mind that right now is a very difficult time for you to find an internship, and it's not a bad idea as you go into your first year to still look, because you never know. But now is probably a good time to prepare yourself for other job experience that will later be marketable. Just being optimistic about these ideas of like micro internships. I've seen that on like some articles through Business Insider and Forbes have been mentioning this term frequently, where instead of you doing maybe a full 12-week summer internship, uh, some places are maybe looking at doing like 5 or 6 week abbreviated work from home or more remote opportunities for you to get maybe a little flavor of what that job is like, but not quite as committal as the full internship with like the onboarding process. And like a lot of larger companies do like an intern case study competition of some kind, just like to help you like show off your skills and stuff. So these micro internships are pared down both as a cost saving measure and as a safety measure. And um, there's a lot going on with those still. So do some reading on that on your own, or again, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you navigate these waters together. Um, but also now is the best time as any to think outside the box and get comfortable with thinking and going places where other people really haven't before. So I want to take another closer look at what that means. So first of all, overall resources to find an internship. There's really good websites out there like Indeed.com, Monster.com, LinkedIn, which if you stick with us next week, I'll talk to you about how to maximize your LinkedIn profile, make a really great resume. Those places are fantastic to apply for. They always keep updates. You can actually select interests on LinkedIn, for example, and they'll send you like notifications with job postings that you can apply for directly. You can link your profile, so like a lot of the data is filled in for you. So really powerful tools out there. Also, you can skip the middleman and go right to a company that you want to work for. Like say you really admire a certain company and you want to work for them as an intern, you can just go to their website under their careers tab. All the big ones always have some kind of section about internships or like a program for graduates or for students. So feel free to check those out. And also that's where LinkedIn can come in handy too. So you can kind of combine those two together. You can go to the website of a company, you can see an internship program and read about it. Then you can go on LinkedIn and you can find the recruiter for that company just by searching like company A plus recruiter, and or that they're called talent acquisition or anything like that. And you'll see people and you can just connect with them and message them and say, hey, I love this. I think it's a great message. I want to be a part of this. When's it open? And even if, you know, the position isn't open yet, they're going to love that kind of ambition. So that's a really good way to kind of combine those different technologies. You also, once you get to your college, can take advantage of their campus career centers. They always have job postings. A lot of them are moving to this other like private LinkedIn site called Handshake. So depending on the college you go to, you might get some experience working with Handshake, and it's a place where recruiters can go place direct ads only for college students. So it's a little bit more tailored for internships, a little bit more tailored for work studies and other programs like that. So you'll get access to that through your career center. And then also you can tap into your professional network. You can ask professors, especially right now at a time like this, you know, not knowing what the next year or so is going to look like. Your connection with your professors, which if you were with us last week, I talked about as being very important as well. Your connection with your professors can really be the foot in the door you need to find an internship. So please keep that in mind when you go to school in the fall. Go to their office hours, talk to them, because when places aren't really hiring a lot, they might be the reference you need to get in. And don't be afraid to ask either, because they're there for you. A lot of them want you to do well. They all do research and have really good connections, and they're often willing to help you out. So now let's talk about thinking outside the box in the world of like the micro internship and um, with a lot of the remote work and just how things are very different now than they were last year. Some ideas that you can still really build some valuable experience that'll eventually make you very hireable, even without the official internship process. I presented a couple of them here. So you can just call a small business. Where we live, especially in Pittsburgh, there's plenty of social media posts about local businesses that need help or that might be struggling right now. You can call them and say, hey, like I'm really interested in like search engine optimization. Can I help you guys improve your website so that you maybe get more e-commerce business? Like people would love that. And it really shows a lot about you. And it's a really good experience because even if you didn't get paid and you didn't apply in the traditional sense, if you still have deliverable results and you've made a difference, that deserves to be on your resume. In fact, I think it's even more impressive than if you do it on your own accord by reaching out to them and saying, how can you offer your services? So to still really reflect positively on you, and you will not slow you down on the internship or job search once places are hiring again and things change. So don't be afraid to take that step. Same with these virtual internships. You'll see a lot of these right now through LinkedIn. Larger companies are maybe doing like a 3 or 4 week summit where it's not quite as rigorous to get into as a regular internship, but they're doing like Q&A with current young employees, or they're doing like a workshop on Excel basics or something like that, just to kind of give some kind of outreach and keep them in your mind. So don't be afraid to accept as many of those as you can, because while they may not justify their own box or own section on your resume, they'll help you find new interests and they'll help you stay relevant on interviews and just stay on top of your game. So you can also work on skills on your own. There are a lot of great websites like Udemy and lynda.com where you can work on your own skills. A lot of them are doing discounts and cheaper subscriptions during this pandemic. So at little to no cost, you can take courses on programming and macros in Excel and just using Office better, or building a website. You can take those kind of courses on your own time right now while we all have a lot of time, and you can develop those skills. And so if you can prove you can do something, it doesn't really matter how you learn it. I think sometimes people are worried about um, putting that on a resume if they didn't learn it in a college class or they didn't learn it in an actual internship. If you feel comfortable that you can do it, be proud of that and show it off to people, no matter how you learned it. And then lastly, volunteering. Um, so many companies now give their employees volunteer time. It's really becoming intertwined with a lot of people's corporate culture. So if you show that you are an avid volunteer, even if you don't have any other work experience, that kind of mindset is different, and people are attracted to that mindset now. That's like that's one of the new things that people are looking for is, what kind of emphasis on the community are people placing. So if you can demonstrate that in a challenging time like this, above anything else, that'll still really help you in the long run too. So even at the end of the day, you just want to work at the animal shelter, you just want to help out with a food bank, put that on your resume. Show that you care, that you're working with your community, because you'll get rewarded for that, for doing the right thing. So these are just some 4 easy ways that over the next year or so, depending on how things shape up here, if you can't get an internship or even can't really find a job you really care about, these are 4 really good ways that you can still get some actual experience that won't hold you back at all once things return back to a different level. So with that, I do want to put a plug in for what's coming up next. So next week, we are going to go over tips to make a compelling resume, use LinkedIn, get recruiters reaching out to you, because that's always a great feeling instead of having to find all these people, have them find you. So if you want more tips, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RPM High Perform. Please follow the South Fayette Library and the Bridgeville Public Library. They've been so great to me, making sure I can come here and speak to everybody. So with that, I will take time for questions. And thank you so much for spending your time with me tonight.
And there were 2 questions in the chat.
Okay.
So
Let's see if I can open.
yeah. So the one is, do internships/jobs hold more value than the other in the case you do both in college?
Excuse me. Could you repeat that, Gary?
So do internships or jobs hold more value than the other in the case that you do both in college?
If you do both, I would say the internship is the most important. So, for example, like a resume, especially for young employees, really cannot be more than 1 page. Some people say like, oh, you can do like maybe a page and a half or like on the backside. No, it's viewed often as kind of arrogant or just like we don't know how to pare things down because we haven't done that much important stuff, to be honest. So when you only have a page to work with, if you need to, put your high school and then the activities, put what you've been accomplishing so far in college, put your contact and your address, and then it comes down to the professional experience here. And maybe you had a great internship and a great job. If the internship has to go first, and then if the job kicks it to a second page, pull those skills out and put them something in college or move them around. That the internship has to get the experience because when a recruiter is looking at your resume and they see only jobs and no internship, they might not doubt necessarily some of the skills that you have, but they're going to question or wonder to themselves, how are you going to manage if you've never really been through a rigorous hiring process before? Because many internships now, it's a phone screen. Sometimes it's a second phone screen, then it's an in-person interview. It's much more difficult to make it through those rounds than it is to get an on-campus job. So it will not adversely affect you, but it'll cause more friction on your application moving through if there's no internship. So definitely prioritize the internship over the job. But the other thing that I didn't stress enough too is the job is something that can really be done very beneficially around the clock. So you can do it during the semester, and then you can really focus on getting that good internship for the summer. So you have really compelling pieces to tell like what you're up to all the time. Like my resume really featured 2 internships at a time basically for space. So I just kind of rotated in the newest ones. And I always featured what I did as a tour guide because as a tour guide, I was responsible for a lot of students coming to the school. That shows good sales, that shows good people skills. I was also on committees to help organize events for campus, sometimes up with like 1,500 people. So that's also really impressive. It shows a lot of different types of skill sets working at once. So I tried to highlight and make those work in harmony together. So if you can, put the internship and job, but if it comes down to only one, show the internship. Thank you.
Um, Another question is, are there internships you can participate in online or through an online platform?
Yes. So that's a great question. I wish I would have seen that before I got to the like micro or virtual one. Yeah. So within the last, I don't know, 2, 3 months, a lot of companies have been adapting and trying to figure out ways to offer internships safely, economically, uh, unconventionally, just anything they can do to stay relevant and to be on young people's minds, so still have a talent pool to pull from. So there are examples, like for example, LinkedIn is really good to show those because LinkedIn, as the professional social media, as much as I really hate to really call it that, but that is what it is. And companies have really good presences on that website to try to attract people and make sure people are coming over to them. So if you spend some time looking around, you will see these virtual internships. And like I said, they range anywhere from, hey, join 50 other first year students, and like let's just talk about the interview process. Or like let's just talk about some basic tips in office or like using Outlook so that you are more efficient when you do get an internship. To They range from that all the way up to, hey, let's pull them in for like 5-6 weeks, do a lot of like data entry, maybe some work on like a database or something like that. With proper training, they may even send you a laptop. So there's a wide range right now as companies are adapting and figuring out what works best for them and their current needs. So you can find a lot of these new virtual internships, which honestly I'm kind of excited about. I think they might provide some opportunities, whether it's like over winter break or over spring break, for students to be able to help develop themselves further, like in this new environment. So I think it has a lot of potential, and definitely take some time to look through LinkedIn on these virtual because it's becoming a more popular thing right now, and I think it's kind of exciting.
All right. And then there's also, is doing research with a professor considered an internship?
Great question. Internships are not the same as doing research. However, if you are in a field where research with the professor um, is open to you, so like if it's a STEM field or if it's like in mathematics, which I guess is STEM, or like in physics, or even like in finance, I did a fellowship. Those would absolutely, I would say, count as substitutable experience. So if at some point, you're offered this opportunity, especially if you're considering grad school or you're looking at um, a unique opportunity from a professor, they come to you and say, hey, we're going to start this research and we really want your input on it. We want your help on it. Jump at that, because that'll cement that great relationship with that professor. Even if it's not paid, it is such good experience. And if you can get it published too, that's better than anything else. So that's an awesome thing that some students are able to really make happen for themselves. I would recommend you try that, because even just working on a research fellowship like I did, it was kind of the first piece. So we're like, it's not going to really be a publishable thing for years if we really get to it, but it was just kind of laying the groundwork. And it was such a really cool experience. And interviewers love talking about it because not a lot of people do it. So if you have that opportunity, absolutely go for it. It is just as good as an internship. It's just, I wouldn't call it an internship. Oh, Carrie, you're on mute.
Sorry. um, but yeah, that was all of our questions. Thank you so much, Ryan. You're a wealth of knowledge. And the questions were amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
They were really excellent questions. So thank you guys so much for coming. And Ryan, thank you so much for giving us your expertise on all of this information.
Very generous. Thank you.
All right, and we'll see you guys next week for the LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm
The
really excited for
resume.
that one. So make sure you're here next week. And thank you all for spending the last hour with me. I enjoyed it.
All right, bye guys. Have a
Bye,
good
bye
night.
everybody.